What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Coming up tonight is the starting 11 prediction for tomorrow's trip to Pittodrie to face Aberdeen. We come in to this one off the back of that 5-0 win over Ross County on Saturday at Celtic Park, where the manager was able to make 6 changes to the team. 4 of those changes got on the score sheet in a blistering first half where we absolutely blew Ross County away. Obviously, we have the sort of natural subconscious dip in the second half, which we see time and time again. When you have a first half like that and you race into a huge lead, there can be a drop off in the second half, and I think that did happen. But to be fair, Ross County's keeper had a couple of good saves. We hit the post a couple of times as well, so we could have had more goals. We know we're playing Ross County, who one of the poorer teams in the league. Their away record is very poor, but I think the narrative after the game, again, off the back of Brendan Rodgers' comments about the difference in the team going back to that game in January where we won 1-0. Alistair Johnson scored in the first minute and we were absolutely terrible for the remaining 89 minutes, and the team were booed off the pitch at the end of the game, to where we are now in the performance we see at the weekend. There was obviously ridiculed by a lot of people, particularly in social media, the rest of Scottish football. I suppose, again, every time Celtic have a comfortable victory, it seems to come back to talk about budgets and how much more money Celtic have than the rest of the league. Now, that is, of course, stating the obvious, but Brendan Rodgers is making a perfectly valid point about the progression in this Celtic team. We had the same amount of money last season. We had so much more money than the rest of the league last season, and for most of the campaign we were very, very poor. What he's commenting on is the growth in the team, how we've progressed, how much better we are in all departments this season. It's a perfectly valid point for him to make. It's certainly not like Celtic's finances have come from illegitimate means. We're not owned by a nation state like some of the big clubs around the world, where a family has just injected in hundreds of millions to create an unfair financial disparity. Celtic's finances and their financial strength is built upon a very prudent financial model, which at times when Celtic have struggled over the years, our own fan base is criticised, but ultimately a really profitable player trading strategy, qualification for the Champions League, and a huge fan base which pays season tickets season in, season out, are the backbone of Celtic's financial status. I think this narrative comes around way too often, but that could be my mistake because it often happens on social media, and we all know that on social media there's very, very little mature football debate going on there. But I think Celtic deserve credit for the way they're playing this season. That result at the weekend brought us to 40 goals scored, 4 conceded so far in the league this season. Still unbeaten domestically, so we're going into this game in absolutely brilliant shape. And now let's turn our attention towards that game tomorrow where we face Aberdeen. We haven't lost in the last 15 visits to Pittodrie. Having said that, Aberdeen have won their last 10 home league matches, so they've been in really strong form at Pittodrie, but they haven't won any of their last 3 games in the league after getting beat at St Mirren 2-1, and then the 3-3 draw against Hibs last midweek, followed up by that 1-1 draw at Tynecastle on Sunday. So they've had a wee bit of a wobble given their incredible start to the league campaign. Mitov, their goalkeeper, went off injured at the weekend. He's going to miss this game. He's out for 6 weeks. So Aberdeen are having some problems now in terms of results. Some big injuries as well. They're going to have to navigate that. That's what you have to do through the course of a season. They have just come off it. I don't think anyone really expected that brilliant start that they had to be sustained through a season, given their squad depth and how difficult it is to maintain that over the course of a whole season. So I don't doubt that it's going to be difficult tomorrow. I think the atmosphere will be brilliant. We know Pittodrie can be loud, certainly in a midweek nighttime game. Really looking forward to it. Should be a brilliant atmosphere, and as I say, their home record speaks for itself recently. They will make this difficult for us, but for us, we've got to focus on matching that hunger and intensity that we showed at the weekend, that desire. And the managers get good headaches, great headaches actually, in terms of picking the team, because after having made 6 changes and getting a performance like that, there might be 1 or 2 positions after the boys that started at the weekend where he thinks, you know what, maybe they've done enough to get in my thoughts in terms of the starting lineup for this big game tomorrow. Let's turn our attention then to that Celtic lineup, and we'll start in goals as always with Kasper Schmeichel. A very easy outing for him at the weekend, it has to be said. We touched on dominance that Celtic had So one of his easiest performances so far, but another clean sheet. And as I say, he's only conceded 4 goals in the league campaign so far this season. That tells you how well the team in front of him is defending, the intensity from the front line in terms of pressing, but also the organisation in front of him in terms of his back four as well. Back four, Johnston, Carter Vickers. I'm going Trusty to come back in for Scales. Alex Valle to keep his place. I think I'm going with Valle to start because his performance against Aberdeen in that semi-final where we won 6-0 was very, very good for 50, 60 minutes before he was subbed off and replaced by Greg Taylor. I think his tenacity in that game was very good. I think his directness, I think his ability to dribble and carry the ball is a facet of his game which is really, really strong. So I think he'll get the nod. I thought Liam Scales was very good at the weekend. He obviously opens the scoring from McCowan's corner, but then plays a lovely dinked pass for McCowan's goal just 5 or 10 minutes later to make it 2-0. I think all round he had a really comfortable afternoon. I think that sums up where Liam Scales is at in terms of his ability to come in and replace Austin Trusty and perform at exactly the same level. I think he's been brilliant, and I think Trusty's just going to come back in to this game because, as I've said before, I think Brendan Rodgers would like to have Carter Vickers and Trusty as his first choice too when everyone's fit and available, and this is a big game. We'll see what he chooses. I think it will be Trusty coming back in midfield. That's where the huge selection headaches come for Brendan Rodgers. McGregor will lead the team, obviously. I want to pick up on something the manager said today in his pre-match press conference, that the team for Aberdeen was already in his mind, irrespective of how Saturday went. He knew he was going to make those changes, and he'd already earmarked the team that would play at Pittodrie. That has coloured my judgment in trying to guess who he's going to play in midfield tomorrow, because you look at Saturday and Luke McCowan scores a goal and has 3 assists in the first half. He was absolutely brilliant all round, fully deserving of all the plaudits that he got for another great performance. He's passed every test with flying colours since he arrived at the club, Luke McCowan. Paulo Bernardo got his start as well, which people had been crying out for. He also got on the score sheet. Engels was on the bench, Hatate was on the bench, and that presents a huge problem for the manager. He's got 4 players vying for 2 positions, and I look back at the midfields that we've seen through the course of the season, and the midfield that I'm going to guess he'll play tomorrow hasn't played together since the Falkirk game, and before that it was the derby, the 3-0 win over Rangers. So I'm going with Paulo Bernardo to keep his place and Rio Hatate to come back in directly or indirectly for Luke McCowan. That might be harsh, and I know a lot of you are crying out for McCowan to start, and I have full confidence in him starting. I wouldn't be surprised to see him starting, but it was just the manager's comment that irrespective of how Saturday went, his team for tomorrow was already in his head, as you would expect. So I think that might see Luke drop to the bench. It wouldn't surprise me to see him start. He'd be fully deserving of another start. But I've gone Bernardo and Hatate. I think Engels will stay on the bench. I just think his form and I think Bernardo's performances have deserved starts. I think he done absolutely no harm to his chances of staying in the team at the weekend as well. Him and McCowan linked up really well. He did get his goal. And I think through the course of this season, Bernardo has performed really, really well, and I think he might just get the nod. Could we see McGregor, Hatate, McCowan? I think we could. I've just gone Bernardo. I think it's a toss of a coin. In midfield, there's so many difficult decisions for the manager to make, but whatever the case, we're going to have a really strong bench tomorrow, and we might need it as the game goes on. Front 3, less headaches there. It's going to be Kuhn, Maeda and Kyogo. Kuhn and Kyogo obviously not needed off the bench at the weekend, so they get a well-deserved rest. Kuhn's obviously been playing at such a high level all season. We know what we get out of Dyson Maeda. He scored a hat-trick against Aberdeen last time out in that 6-0 semi-final victory. And for Kyogo, good for him to get a rest. Ida led the line brilliantly, scored a brilliant goal at the weekend as well. So he's really adding to his numbers. His goals per minute for Adam Ida has been really, really good, despite the fact that since he came back in the summer, he hasn't looked in top shape. He's getting there now, you can see that. But regardless, he's been scoring goals and he's been scoring them at a very good rate as well. So I think Kyogo will come back in. I think he does a brilliant option for us, and we will see him at some time in the game. But that's the 11 I think the manager's going to go with for tomorrow. It's a huge game. It's a huge opportunity for us to move 7 points clear of Aberdeen with a game in hand and put ourselves in a really, really commanding position going forward in this league campaign. We've got bigger games to come up after Hibs at the weekend at Zagreb in the Champions League, and then the League Cup final. So between tomorrow and Saturday, if we can get 6 points will be in a really commanding position in the league and able to focus fully on that game in Zagreb and then the League Cup final at Hampden. Let me know in the comments who you think will start. I'm sure there's a few of you that disagree, different positions across the pitch, particularly in midfield. Let me know who you think will start, and we will see you outside Pittodrie tomorrow after it's all said and done with full-time reaction. Thank you.